Today is May 29th, 2020. It is not 1963. Right now we're experiencing a tremendous backlash of racism in America. Racism can be defined as the belief that one's race is superior over other races. This is what a lot of us don't understand about racism. That is actually the definition of racism. A lot of the things we're seeing now happening in America is a result of racism. My first experience with racism happened in 1963. And believe it or not, it was in the northern part of the country. I was in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I was working as a pool boy at a hotel. I had previously been a state champion swimmer. I made friends with the guy who was the lifeguard at the pool, and we were going swimming from time to time. I was told not to go swimming in the pool, but I assumed they meant doing regular business hours. So one afternoon after the swimming pool closed, my friend and I went swimming in the pool. And obviously I was a much better swimmer than he was, but he was the lifeguard. Upon finding out that I went swimming in the pool, I was fired for going swimming in that pool. And believe it or not, I went back 2 days later to pick up my paycheck. All the water had been drained from the pool as a result of me going swimming in the pool. I'm in up north. You know, we all assume in those days that if you go up north, everything's cool. As a matter of fact, during those years, there was a lot of black flight to the northern part of the country, thinking opportunities would be better, and there were, I guess, in a lot of ways. The difference in racism up north and down south was that up north it was more subtle. It was happening, but you didn't necessarily notice it happening. Down south, it was blatant in your face. People like George Wallace, who was an avowed segregationist, let you know where he stood at all times. There was no misunderstanding about how he felt about black people. I say all these things now to say what's happening now in America is tremendously shocking to me, and I just can't understand it, why this is happening. Now, for me to experience what I experienced at that pool in 1963, and to see my grandson in 2020 experiencing similar behaviors of racism is unfathomable to me. I cannot for the love of me understand why my grandson, age 13 in 2020, has to witness this type of racism in America. You know, a lot of kids who grew up many years after I did assumed that things were cool. Everything's all right now. We got integrated schools. We got all kinds of business opportunities, and things are better. By a long shot, things have gotten better overall over the last several decades. What's happening now as a result of Donald J. Trump in the White House is giving rise to these kinds of racist attitudes in America. The reason why a lot of racists exist today, and some are being born now as we speak, more and more being created, is a result of some of those gains that blacks made in the 60s and beyond. Opportunities and education and things that we have been able to accomplish has been a two-edged sword. In one way, it's helped us to gain more of a footage in American life, but at the same token, those white people that have a problem with that see this as an infringement on their rights. They see us as being a threat to their dominance in American society. Part of the racism is the fact that black folks have gained more opportunities, therefore they feel threatened that we're going to take it over. As a matter of fact, there have been many studies that say that white people are going to be in a minority in the next few coming years. And that fear of black people taking over has permeated all this racism that's resurfacing, along with the fact that Donald J. Trump has allowed this attitude to exist. He's created a climate that people feel comfortable doing the things that they're doing now. To go back to Charlottesville, Virginia a few years ago, you had Klansmen and all these kind of racist people marching in broad daylight. there was a time when these kind of activities were done underneath a hood by the Klan. But these people have been emboldened by the Trump administration to be able to do these kinds of things in broad daylight, and they feel comfortable doing it. It's pretty shameful that we're at this point again. I really thought that all this stuff was behind. But I'm seeing now that it's being created more and more today. It's very horrible to think about this. And to see that the public lynching of a black man in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a public lynching, modern day lynching in broad daylight, is shocking to watch. For my grandkids and beyond, and his peers, to see this kind of thing happening in America, I just don't see how we can get beyond that. It's terrible that we have to witness these kinds of things and relive the past. We as people have to try to do better in terms of seizing on opportunities and being very vocal when you see these things happen. Now, I don't know how many people out there now have witnessed racism firsthand or in your face type racism, but I'm sure it's happened to you. Some job you didn't get, some promotion you didn't get, some opportunity in business you didn't get. You might not know what happened, but a lot of this stuff is behind racism. People believing that their race is superior than yours. And the fear of black men is really a horrible truth right now for white men and white people in general. The fear of black men has been a thing that has started a lot of this racist attacks and police brutality. Somehow we are 10 feet tall, superhumans. We're going to beat you down if we encounter you. So you got to use deadly force in order to put us in our place. This is not real. This is a problem, a huge problem. And then part of this racist thing is the fact that we're seeing now more mixed racist marriages and mixed race children, all these kinds of things. Even on TV, you see commercials featuring mixed couples, which is something I would never thought I would see. This thing has become acceptable in American society. Therefore, those people who resist that type of behavior have backlash impulses about this kind of behavior. They cannot stand to see a white woman with a black man, which has always been the issue in the past. The biggest issue, probably the most black men that were lynched as a result of some type of encounter with some white woman. This was the biggest things in the past, in the days gone by, that caused the problem. But the problem right now is, of course, this whole thing of being shut out, a fear of being shut out by black men or in other minorities. We're seeing on TV images of blacks and other minorities achieving different things in sports. Football is dominated by African Americans in a lot of ways in NFL. NBA is dominated by black players. And for white people who visualize this, it's a problem. It means that they, in their minds, are inferior. Therefore, they're going to take this out on us. The other thing is that racism exists in a lot of ways. For example, housing. When I first moved into the neighborhood that I'm in right now, over 30 years ago, this neighborhood was primarily white. Once I moved in, and a few other blacks moved in this neighborhood, we saw a slow moving out of white neighbors. For example, both sides of where I live, people on both sides of my house were white. And not very long from the time I moved in, they were out of there. Because of this racism thing, they can't fathom the fact that you are on equal footing with them. They can't stand the fact that you have achieved what they have achieved. They're supposed to be superior to you. Therefore, it's unacceptable in their minds that you have done something that they can do. This is another part of the racism thing, and it is terrible. I've even noticed, this may be ridiculous, but I've noticed pulling up at a traffic light. There have been white people who were beside me in the traffic, in the other lane, and they make sure that they're ahead of me in the traffic lane. And this may sound ridiculous, but I've noticed this over the years. Pull up to a traffic light, and the people beside you, and the white people beside you, are going to pull ahead of you in some way or another, no matter what. Because in their minds, they got to be ahead of you. They can't be equal to you. You are an inferior being. The other thing about this racism thing is that You know, back in the past, blacks were not considered to be a full human being. It was like 3/5 of a human being to vote and so forth. They didn't perceive us as equal or human beings. They perceive you as being something less than that. The reason why they feel comfortable treating you like they do is because they don't think you're actually a full-blooded, full-force human being. It's all right to treat you like they treat you because you ain't really human. I can put you on the ground and put my foot on your neck and choke the life out of you because you ain't really human. It don't matter. Your lives don't matter that much. Your lives are worth less than ours. Therefore, your treatment is insignificant to us. We can just dog you out and no problem. Because you were not equal to us in the first place. You're not even human. They will actually give more attention to their pets than a lot of black folks. In their minds, this pet is more treasured than your life. So, I mean, these things are things that are happening in America today. And I'm very glad to see young people who are able to recognize this thing that's happening now and not think everything is roses. I mean, you grew up in generations of desegregation and these types of things that made you believe things are really good for blacks in America, and they are in a lot of ways. But there's a lot of work to be done on our part and the system itself. But I am glad that some of the younger generations of people understand what racism is like in America and what it was like for me growing up in the 60s and 50s. I can also remember the times when in our school system, all the books we got for our schools were hand-me-downs from the white schools. They had a later edition of a certain book or math book or whatever. We got the oldest edition of that same book. Things like that were happening. All the black folks, or most of the black folks in my hometown of Kinston, North Carolina, if you were born at Parrott Hospital, you were in the basement. All the black folks were in the basement, white people upstairs. Those types of things that we live with that a lot of young people don't even understand. Go to a doctor's office and you had colored drinking water fountains and colored waiting room and all this stuff. So, I mean, when you see these kind of things happening, you believe in your own mind that you must be inferior for them to treat you like this. There's something wrong with me that they would do this to me. And in your mind, over time, you believe that you are inferior. And your actions kind of carry that out. But I'm glad today that at least we know that young blacks in America today can be educated, can understand what the whole system is all about. We can move forward and understand what you need to do in order to make these things a change for the future. Of course, education is a big key of what we have to do. But the system also has to be helped out by white people recognizing that they can do more, need to do more to convince other white people that racism is wrong and it's terrible for those who suffer from it. So going forward, we look forward to educating ourselves and by all means stay woke. Understand what's happening around you. Pay attention to the news. Understand what they're trying to do to you. You must be aware at all times of what you need to do to survive in this America. It's terrible for me to realize and see what's happening now as opposed to what I saw 63 years ago. And it's terrible to see my kids and my grandkids have to witness the same type of thing. You would think that would be impossible for it to happen now. And Donald J. Trump is always stoking the fire of his kind of racism by not speaking out about it and just letting it go and let people just do their thing, watching him make it acceptable and making a climate that people can feel comfortable doing that. And it's terrible. And we got to stay woke and got to stay on top of what's happening.